This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Ready for Speak For Yourself? Take it away, Cowherd.
Welcome to Speak For Yourself. I'm Colin Cowherd. Jason Whitlock is out all week. Joining me today, Hall of Famer Chris Carter, Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard, longtime NBA vet Jim Jackson. Let's start here in Los Angeles, where the Lakers shocked the basketball world today, or did they, naming Magic Johnson, the legend, president of basketball operations. The team fired longtime GM Mitch Kupchak and even relieved co-owner Jim Buss of his control of team personnel. Here's Magic on his new gig.
I don't want to fool the fans, right? We're going to build this thing the right way. It's not a quick fix. I'm not a quick fix. I can't turn it around tomorrow, or I really would be Magic, right? But I think that what I'm smart enough to understand that if we do it the right way, then we can turn it around. And that's what I'm telling the fans out there, that we're going to do it the right way. The Laker organization has always been about best in class. And so we will continue that. And but there's no quick fix here. Now, we have some really talented guys. They got to get better.
All right, Broussard, is bringing in Magic, who's got more jobs than Ryan Seacrest, is that a good decision for the Lakers?
There are people around the league questioning whether or not Magic has the time or will make the time to do it.
Basketball ops is a real job.
Yeah, he's got, exactly. But I do think it was a good job, or good hire, because I think one thing about Magic, he's a leader. Nobody can deny that he's a leader, and I believe he can delegate authority. I like what I'm hearing so far. There's talk that they might hire Rob Pelinka as the GM. That's Kobe Bryant and James Harden's agent. Longtime agent, very intelligent. The one agent in the league that's made this transition, Bob Myers in Golden State. He's been golden, so no pun intended. So if Rob can do that, you heard Arn Tellem's name mentioned as well. So I like that. Ryan West. Now, Magic purged the front office. Yeah. Mitch Kupchak, Jim Buss, John Black, the longtime PR guy, 25 years. I hate to see him go, but he kept Ryan West, who's Jerry West's son. He's the assistant GM. So I think so far I'm hearing that he's putting basketball people in place to do the dirty work. Magic's not going to do the dirty work. Hire the right people to do that.
Shouldn't I be worried, though, Jim, that Rob Pelinka and Arn Tellem, that's Kobe's former and Kobe's current agent. So I got a former Laker and then a former Lakers agent and Jerry West's son. It feels like a lot of rear view mirror.
But Jerry West was rear view mirror, and he was one of the greatest GMs in history.
Well, here's the thing, too, and Jeannie Buss said this, that it's not going to be, we don't want anybody that wants to try to recreate Showtime, which you shouldn't, because this is a new era, this is a new generation. What you need from Magic's perspective is, and we talked about this on your show, is that you can't fall in love with the deal. Because if you fall in love with the deal, it clouds your judgment on the best decisions you need to make in regards to who you're going to bring in. I thought the decision to make a move was smart right now, because now you got a chance to evaluate your talent going into the end of the year, get ready to get a GM, evaluate the draft, and then move forward. So timing-wise, I thought it was excellent. Who Magic chooses to fill out the rest of this and how he delegates his time, Chris, to me, is ultimately going to be the key.
Yeah, and what personality? We've seen Magic be very successful in a number of different businesses, but those businesses required a different personality than it requires to be a successful director of basketball operation. Will he do the grunt and grind work? Because you can't delegate all of that.
That's right.
Okay, now we've seen Phil Jackson struggle in New York. We've seen other people struggle. So for me, I think he's more apt to struggle than to be successful. Because I said, when I heard the announcement today, I asked myself the question, two questions. Is San Antonio and Golden State concerned about the Lakers? Don't answer. Is LeBron or anyone in the East concerned about the Lakers? Don't answer. We know the answer to that. So for me, are you getting actually closer to a championship, or are you moving sideways? Now, eventually, they had to get rid of Jim Buss. So they didn't go backwards, but did they go sideways?
Well, I mean, Danny Ainge has done a nice job, and Larry Bird did a nice job, and Joe Dumars did a nice job. Those guys have worked.
Larry Bird, I think, is a similar comparison.
Yes.
But also those guys
did
Some of them didn't do it at Boston, though. It's different.
Those guys
True, but
But also, some of them did a better job coaching.
Well, when Larry coached, though, Larry Larry was straight delegate. I had my offensive coordinator, and I got my defensive coordinator. And Larry was just the legend, and it worked.
Okay, but Larry, Dumars, and Ainge aren't worth $500 million. They don't own baseball teams or portions of it. My concern is, think about the NFL. Outside of Belichick, it's almost impossible to be coach and GM in the same building.
Yes.
Magic's got 18 buildings in town he's running.
John Elway in Denver.
Okay, but John was GM of an arena team and multiple car dealerships.
Yeah, which he diluted, and he wasn't full-time doing that.
And
Yeah,
he got
sold
rid
them
of
off.
those.
He sold all those off.
I mean, I just think basketball ops is hard. It's a real job. Look at Danny Ainge has been terrific. He's already willing to give up about 4 of those guys he's drafted. I mean,
No, Danny's had his struggle.
He's
struggles.
excellent.
Yeah, there's no question.
And how much time, too, from Magic's perspective, I'll say this again, is that those other guys, Larry Bird went to Indiana. He was a coach. He moved up, but he wasn't tied emotionally to the franchise beforehand like Magic is with the Lakers. And with that comes a certain, I don't know, feeling that you got to do it a certain way. You may not say you're going to do it the way the Lakers do it, but you're going to hear him talk about the past Lakers and about how we used to do it. How does that influence his decisions moving forward?
Let me throw this out. I grew up with Magic. Like, that's the poster on the wall guy for me. But the current free agents who are coming off their first contract, the Karl Anthony Towns in a couple of years, if he ever went to market, they were Kobe guys. Like, Magic in the room doesn't sell them.
Well, whoever's in the room, you're going to have to show a good plan because these guys want to win. So even having Magic in the room is nice, but if the plan isn't good, it's still not going to matter. Now, before that, with Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss, they're not really charismatic people.
They're not.
So that was really a turnoff for players. Magic won't be a turnoff because everybody loves him and obviously
very likable guy.
Yeah, but he's still going to have to come up with a great plan.
Thanks, guys. Before we move on to the next topic, I want to bring in Whitlock for a special message.
That's right, Jason. Harry's was started by 2 guys who were fed up with being overcharged for razors. So they decided to start their own razor company to give guys what they deserve, a great shave at a fair price. They bought a factory with 100 years of blade-making experience so they could make their own high-quality razors for half the price of the leading brand. Harry's Razors includes everything you need for a close, comfortable shave. 5 German-engineered blades, a lubricating strip, a flex hinge for a comfortable glide, a trimmer blade, and a weighted ergonomic handle. All of that for just $2 a blade compared to 4 more you'll pay at the drugstore. If you're like me, you don't have time to spend shopping. I'm up early prepping for Speak for Yourself. Then after the show, I've got games to watch and the next day's prep to do. I love the convenience of a good product being delivered straight to me. Harry's can do that by giving you a high-quality shave set at a good price without any of the hassle. Harry's is so confident in the quality of their blades, they want you to try their most popular trial set for free. It comes with a razor handle of your choice, a 5-blade cartridge, and shaving gel, all for free when you sign up. Just pay a small fee for shipping. Go to harrys.com/speak, SPEAK, right now.
Thanks, and just a reminder, that's harrys.com/speak. Now back to the show.
Well, the second half of the NBA season kicks off this week. Not surprisingly, Vegas lists Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors and LeBron's Cavs as the clear favorites to make the NBA Finals. Pretty good call. All right, Jim Jackson, to start with you. We've seen these 2 teams face off 2 years in a row. Who should be of these 2 the favorite to win it?
To me, I go with the Cavs. And the reason why I do that is a couple different reasons. One, you got the best player in the world, which is LeBron James. You have an unstoppable force in regards to Kyrie Irving. Defensively, they figured out over 2 NBA Finals how to negate the effectiveness of Steph Curry.
Yes.
He's still averaging about 23 points a game.
He's not the same
but
guy
he's not the same guy. No. With Klay Thompson, Klay will get his. Here's the thing I've always said. Cleveland has the best, I think, opportunity because Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, those guys can rough up Klay. They can rough up Steph without hurting their offense. No one on Golden State can chase. Clay can't chase Kyrie for 40 minutes.
Well, no, Cleveland can play two ways.
Yes.
Golden State can play
one way.
If I said to you, NBA championships are decided by your best 3 or 4 players. So we know Golden State's got 4 really good players. We know it's KD and Steph and Clay and Draymond. Well, I would argue I get LeBron, K-Love, Kyrie, and I think Tristan Thompson is probably the worst of the 8, but still good. Yeah. My Cleveland guys can play 2 different styles. And I'll also throw this out. In championship games like the Super Bowl, Final Four, and the NBA Finals, officiating matters. What we saw last year in the finals was refs let them play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I think that's a big edge to one team.
Cleveland.
So you're favoring Cleveland too.
I get a team that can win 2 ways, and I know in the last series, refs let the players win the game.
Yeah, they can win 2 ways on paper now, but today's team, they can't win because, number one, Love is hurt. JR is hurt.
But they'll be back.
Okay, I understand all that, but there is a continuity and there is a conditioning factor. Like, how good a shape is Kevin Love going to be in? Say he only plays in 10 games before we get to the playoffs. So that will have an effect. And their ability to get through the East easy. Because if you look at the series that they've won, they swept over half of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would help them. In the long run, there's a couple teams. What if Golden State matches up with the Pelicans in the first round? All right, by the time...
You thinking upset?
No, not upset,
okay.
but wear and
Make it
tear.
tougher.
Just like last year, when Steph was a little nicked up, they had some wear and tear on them when they got
Portland
to the
was
final.
a tough 5.
You know, so it's the intangibles coming down the stretch. How healthy is Cleveland? And in the playoffs, what kind of matchups with the seedings does Golden State get?
I favor Golden State. I give Cleveland a good shot. They're the only team in the league I really give a legitimate shot, and that's because LeBron is so great and Kyrie is so great. Like, those 2 are capable of lifting you over a better team.
Yep.
Yes.
Like they did last year.
Yep.
And so I give them a shot, but Golden State is so good. Best defensive team in the league, or one of the top 2. Best offensive team in the league. Leads the league in blocks. It's difficult. They're so stacked, it's difficult to think of a trade that most teams could make that would put them on the level of the Warriors. Other than Cleveland, like, who could the Clippers
standpoint.
get?
Can I throw this out?
To put them
We go into the
above
Super Bowl, and Atlanta's a little like Golden State. We're like, man, they got a lot of weapons. And then we look
But
at...
they've done it before. That's the difference.
They have, but the advantage psychologically would be to Cleveland. KD hasn't won. Steph's coming off of bad finals. Draymond's always emotionally semi-unhinged.
Right.
I got Kyrie playing with confidence.
Golden State has more pressure.
More pressure on Golden State, and a lot of guys either coming off a bad final or never won. I think the psychological edge, which always felt like it was a disadvantage for LeBron in his first, 8 years in the league, I think it's in his...
Now nobody really expects him to win
what's the
anymore.
pressure on LeBron?
It's all on the... Now, look, I've talked to executives around the league. I want your 2 guys' thoughts. That have said they think Carmelo for Love would make the Cavaliers better against the Warriors. Because Draymond Green has he destroys Kevin Love.
Yes.
Okay? Whereas if he had to match up with Carmelo, that's a whole different... And he's not going to destroy Carmelo Anthony. Now, I'm not saying I'd make that move, but I've talked to some people that think for that series,
Yeah, for
and
a
that's really
series.
all they need it for, they're going to beat everybody else with or without Love.
Right, but it changes the way you play, too. It changes the way you're going to attack Golden State, too. Defensively, they have to guard Cleveland a different way when you're guarding that pick and roll with Kevin Love than you do with Carmelo. So it sounds good on paper, but schematically, it's some different things. Now, also, too, you're talking about how much incrementally better are they going to be defensively with Carmelo guarding.
It's very much a wash.
That's what I'm saying. So offensively, you're going to get something, but the way this team operates, Cleveland does, I think the makeup of the team makes it so tough for them to guard with Kevin Love when he's playing at a high level.
I like Kevin Love in the way they start with the Cavs, because the Cavs go through Kevin Love.
Yes.
He's 4th in the NBA in first quarter scoring. But I think they would be a better finishing team with Melo, because he would open up the floor, and he's more apt to take the big shots in the 4th or in overtime compared to Kevin Love. Yeah. Kevin Love gets off to a good start, but as the game goes on...
later on.
Let me tell you, if Kevin Love goes from LeBron to the Knicks, the next CBA has to have a rule. You can't go from LeBron to the Knicks. That's entirely unfair. All right, welcome back. Hall of Famer Chris Carter, Chris Broussard, NBA vet Jim Jackson back with us. Let's move to Boston. Interesting team where the Celtics guard Isaiah Thomas, a young star, set Twitter on fire last night with a cryptic, wide-eyed emoji tweet launching speculations that a big Celtic trade was imminent. It'd be fun. The Celtics are within shouting distance of the Cavs. They are. But the price would be steep to add a major piece before Thursday's trade deadline. So, okay, let's go to Mr. Reporter Chris Broussard. Should Boston overpay to acquire a superstar like Jimmy Butler?
I would not do it for Blake Griffin, Carmelo Anthony, or Jimmy Butler.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't do it. If I could get Butler on the cheap, then I might do it. But I have concerns about how Butler and Isaiah Thomas would fit together. Because once Butler became a star, he didn't fit with Derrick Rose handling the ball a lot. And they clashed. Isaiah Thomas handles the ball a lot. And I don't know. And Jimmy's not a great three-point shooter. So I think that might be problems. The superstar I would target, and I would give up next year's first-round pick from Brooklyn, which is going to be a top pick. I would do that for Paul George. Because I don't think Paul George is happy in Indiana. He's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think he can play at a higher level. He fits better. He's a better three-point shooter. He's on the front court versus being a guard. I would love for them to get Paul George. Then you got Horford, George, and Isaiah Thomas in some great role players.
Could I have the comment, though, they have to make a move? Because Avery Bradley's going to want a ton next year, and they're not paying him. Horford's 31. Isaiah Thomas is terrific. But in the end, LeBron and Kyrie are A-plus stars. They got 3 years each of prime. The draft pick thing's not working. I mean, it's adorable. It's not working. The top...
It's a good draft, though. It is a good draft.
The top 7 guys in this draft, I looked this morning, they're all 19. You're not throwing 19-year-olds at Kyrie Irving and LeBron and Tristan Thompson. So could I just make the argument, you got to make some move. If Paul George isn't available, and I'm not convinced Indy lets him go, then you have to make a move for somebody.
Do any of those other 3 guys beat Cleveland?
Okay, Isaiah Butler, Horford, Brad Stevens, good home court advantage.
I don't think
six games.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
6 games.
I like the Paul George because of the matchup with LeBron and some of the intangibles that he's bringing. He don't need the ball, all right? He plays great defense, and he is a good team player defensively. He helps out, all the time. So I like his skill set, and from a superstar, to me, he has the right mentality. Like, he wants to win. And I believe that he would even sacrifice more of his game if he went to a place like Boston that is a player or 2 away from being as good as Cleveland.
But you can't make a move, Colin, just to make a move, too.
Yes.
In regards to where they're going 2 to 3, 4 years down the line. I agree with you. The draft, in regards to what Boston needs, is not there. Because in the league now, you have a point guard you need to have. You need that in between that swing 4-man, but you need a 3-man that can really break down the defense. The 2, you can have it, but that 3. So if you can get a Paul George at a cost that helps you, I think he'll buy in. Will it happen, and will Danny Ainge do it? Will Indiana what is Indiana going to ask for in return?
I would think Indiana would do it if they'll give up one of those Brooklyn picks. They have Miles Turner.
Especially if you know you're going to lose George.
Because they can now go in and say, we're going to start over to kind of reset the toolbox a little bit.
All these guys are one-and-dones. All these guys available at that number 1 pick.
Yep.
Never been a one-and-done lead you to a title. Kyrie's the only one that has one, and he won 35% of his games before LeBron.
But there have been guys straight out of high school. It's essentially the same thing.
I mean, Kyrie
Straight
played
out of high
8 games.
school?
My point is, I know we love the one-and-done thing. This is a man's league. This is not a kid's league.
And the one-and-dones, it takes a while because also the one-and-dones are going to the worst teams.
Yeah.
All right, so which also not only have the worst record, but they have the worst structure. They also probably have the worst player development. So you see their growth. Yeah, they went for the money, but they put themselves in bad situations because of the top of the draft.
Okay, the question is, I think what you're saying, you have to make sure that superstar you're getting puts you on Cleveland's level. So if you're not convinced, Jimmy Butler, why is Chicago ready to move him? He's 27. He's a star. If you get a draft pick, you're hoping he becomes Jimmy Butler. But if you talk to people around Chicago, they're questioning his leadership. Exactly. Has he gone Hollywood? They feel he has. And that's why they're willing to move him. So how's he going to mesh with Isaiah Thomas and all these guys in Boston?
Okay, so let's say you're right. But they don't. I don't think they get George because I don't think Indiana's going to let him go. Okay, so now we don't go. No Blake, no this, no Melo, no Butler. So I have 31-year-old Al Horford. I got the Celtics in town. By the way, the Patriots, they're stealing my ticket base. The Bruins are too. Red Sox are favored to win the World Series. and I'm giving you draft picks?
They're still better off than making a bad deal, Colin.
Is Jimmy Butler a bad deal?
Well, for the future, like how much better do they get on paper? With
I mean,
Butler?
they got cap room and they have draft picks.
And could they wait till after the season, before the draft, to package a bigger deal than to do something now?
All right, moving to some NBA legends who aren't thrilled with the direction the league is heading. Reggie Miller blamed millennials. Why not? They're easy to blame.
Yes.
For the total lack of defense in Sunday's All-Star game. Kevin Garnett went even further, saying AAU has ruined the NBA. And just for good measure, Charles Barkley this week said the league is, quote, not putting a good product out there. Are those old guys screaming at clouds, or do they have a point? Chris Carter, what do you make of the bad product thing?
Man, the pregame show sucks, man. They need to switch out their graphics. They need to go back to the highlight where Kenny used to run up there for the highlights and everything. No, it's just funny, especially for old people, because I try to make my mind stay young. Right. And they're not the only league that's putting out a bad product. This is hard to sell. It's hard to sell for Major League Baseball. It's hard to sell the National Hockey League. It's hard to sell in pro football. I mean, the Hall of Fame, the Pro Bowl game is getting ready to go away. So it's a hard product for all of them to sell. But who does it the best? The NBA. They still do it the best. Now, they could get a little bit of help, creativity, getting a few more stars into the slam dunk. Why don't we raise some money for charity and get one or two of the stars to be, if they're in the slam dunk contest, then the rest of the weekend is just a bonus. The skills, the rising stars games, all those things are still very entertaining. But this is a tough ticket for all the sports to sell.
He's talking about
not just the All-Star game, to your point. Let's talk about the bigger product.
League.
I would argue this. I still think it's a good product, but I think what happens in all businesses, there are cultural changes. There's two things that have happened to the NBA, and if I'm Adam Silver, I'm not sure I could control either. I always said you can't blame Obama for ISIS. You can blame him for a gas price or a stock market or morale in the White House. Can I blame Adam Silver for the one-and-done culture? No. And I can't blame him for the three-point shot, the analytical guys, the Moneyball crowd. Yep. I think the three-point shot is killing the All-Star game, to your point yesterday.
Has killed it.
I also think it's changing the sport for the worse. It's eliminated centers. It's eliminated Ben Wallace, Dennis Rodman, Charles Oakley.
Yes.
You know,
it's eliminated guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, how many centers have real offensive post game?
It's eliminated a lot of guys that added texture to the league. Yeah. Not everybody is Chris Carter. It's fun to have the the fringe niche guy that makes the game fun to watch.
There is a threshold. We saw it in All-Star
This
game.
is interesting.
I said in 2013, the game was still pretty competitive. They took 71 threes. The next year, 100, and it's been going up ever since. The NBA's gone up year after year, three-point shots. Now it's at 58 per game. And I don't know 54 per game. Maybe that threshold 70. If it keeps increasing like it is, and you essentially get the analytic guy's dream.
So it's just all threes or all
dunks.
Yeah.
That's not a good game.
It's an All-Star game.
Yeah,
it's not a good product.
I think they need to, if this continues, and it probably will, they'll probably keep shooting more threes, then you have to move the three-point line back.
Chris,
maybe get rid of the corner three.
Okay,
but move the three-point line
Canadian
back.
football. You've watched Canadian football.
Oh, love it, yes.
My knock on it, that there was no running game. Like the Canadians said, you know what we're going to do? Just going to pass. And I'm like, I love passing. I don't like that much passing. Right. I don't like watching the Big 12. I like the SEC runs the football and passes it. Could I argue, and you were a great basketball player, that the game has lost all of its physicality? It's just all shooting jumpers now.
Well, they've made the game more finesse, and they've specialized. Just like the other sports, they specialize. You can be a shooter, you can be a dribbler, but you don't have to be a post player. So it has hurt the game. But as a viewer, sometimes conceptually, we have to change what we've been looking at because we're so used to watching. I watched Jimmy play basketball. I watched my brother play basketball in the NBA in the 80s. So, but along the way, I've changed my eye. Does it make it actually better? Not necessarily better, but this game is totally different. The kids are different. It's harder to evaluate players. I mean, coming out of high school and after 1 year of college or 3 years, the game in college is totally different than the NBA. So the product is going to suffer because the evaluation of the players has suffered.
I'm saying this too. A lot of times the older guys, and I got the chance to cross over that early 90s all the way through. Revisionist history. It was some bad teams in the early 90s.
Thank you.
Okay? Let's don't get it twisted. And I was on one of them.
We forgot.
Okay? Now, but everybody want to talk about the era of the 90s and how great it was. No, it was some bad teams.
We didn't have as many TV deals. You couldn't hardly see.
Couldn't hardly
You didn't have the NBA
But it was
package.
so the change of the guard, so to speak. The teams that played in the 80s looked at us in the 90s, young kids coming in different. We played the game different. It's always going to be like that.
Problem
And the
there,
game
in the
has to-
90s, remember, they said y'all didn't score enough.
We didn't score
It was
enough.
too slow.
It was too slow. So the game has to evolve in a certain way. I do believe it will come back to the fact that the center or the postman will come back and have a relevant place in the game.
If Karl Anthony Towns, over 3 years, starts controlling things,
they'll go back to that.
then every GM in the league will want to find a Karl Anthony Towns.
And he does it a little bit differently than a Akeem, than a Patrick Ewing. But the effect of having a post player, think about it, for me, if I'm a team and I'm struggling shooting, I want to have somebody I can put it on the block and get an easy basket or two, get a foul, and change the dynamics of the game. And I think eventually it will come
Or
back
if
around
Cousins
to that.
dominates in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Then that model right there.
With that high-low with him and
If they
Anthony Davis.
give Golden State problems or the West problems, you can look for people to try to duplicate that.
All right, welcome back. Hall of Famer Chris Carter, Chris Broussard, and back joining us now, Super Bowl champ Eric Davis. Let's move to the NFL, where Tony Romo's future continues to dominate offseason headlines. The respectable Peter King says the Texans and Chiefs could be the favorites to land Tony, which could give New England some real competition, he theorizes, in the AFC. All right, we start with you, Hall of Famer Chris Carter. Should the Patriots fear Tony Romo in their conference?
The Patriots don't even think that way. Now, I know Peter King, now he's on it. Now, if he says it, there's a high probability of these things happening. But as far as New England fearing one of those teams, no, they don't operate that way. But let's just play hypothetical. If you put Tony Romo in that game where they were playing the Houston Texans in the playoff, New England would have been terrified. Now, they've been there.
There we go.
Now, in Kansas City, now, it's not only Tony Romo, it's Jamal Charles, too.
Mm-hmm.
So you add that to the defense, Kelsey. I mean, these are scary teams. So New England doesn't get scared.
But they do scared.
If they did.
The competition in the AFC went way, way up with Denver and Pittsburgh also being formidable.
J.J. Watt wasn't around, and Houston was the #1 defense.
Yeah.
He's
Yes.
coming back, and the odds in Vegas haven't changed. When Gronk, who we all know is great, wasn't in a Super Bowl, didn't change the line. If Tony Romo went to Houston tomorrow morning, they go from 40-1 to probably 18-1. Now, not many guys in this league move Vegas like that.
Yeah, well, and, as much as yesterday, I was saying, which would I want, Romo for a full season? No. But this, I've already said, we talked about it. Tony Romo can win a playoff game. His ceiling is high when healthy. And the reason a team like that would be scary if he went to a Kansas City, or let's say if he went to Houston, especially, as you just said, they have shown that they can win with their defense, that they don't need the quarterback position to get them there. So having Tony Romo miss those games that I know he's going to miss, that's okay, because he can be healthy for the playoffs and he could win a couple of games. And Denver is another team that has shown that their defense can get to New England. Houston has shown that they can get there. They just got to have some quarterback play. So that would be scary.
But in that scenario, I mean, if you get Tony Romo, you're playing him for the whole season. And to your point, he probably won't last.
He's going to break.
You think he won't last. The scenario that he could be there all season and then just come in the playoff game.
He could have done it this year.
Is unlikely.
He could have done it this year.
So are you saying start someone else?
No,
Or play
I'm
him
saying-
part-time,
I'm saying you're gonna-
Then when you get to the playoff,
This is what I said. If you get Tony Romo, you better know that your backup is going to play. And that's what I'm saying. Those teams have shown, that's what Chris and I think we're on the same thing. Houston has shown that they can win without a top-tier quarterback. So has Denver. They have shown that they can win, because Peyton Manning's last year, he was not Peyton Manning, okay?
Right.
So they have shown they can win without top-tier quarterback play. So now you let him go, because he's going to break. You put him back together like Humpty Dumpty. Playoffs comes. He's ready to play. That's a different story, Chris.
I hope he goes to one of those two teams. I mean, I really would love to see him in Houston, with that defense. I still would favor New England. There's nothing going to make – I mean, they lost Gronkowski and still won the Super Bowl.
I'm going to tell you a team to watch out for. Watch Romo going to the Jets. If Todd
You think they'd be good with it?
Well, just how the Jets
I'd hate
were
to do
2
that to
years ago.
Tony.
No, they're good enough. They got good personnel offensively, got a decent offensive line, got Forte as a running back. I'm just talking about a mystery team. someone that people aren't looking at where he could potentially end up.
You know what's funny about Tony Romo? Last 25 years in the NFL, Romo has the highest fourth quarter passer rating. Now think about that.
Last 20 years?
Last 25 years. We can say all we want about Romo. He has always been so underserved by the fans because he's a Cowboy quarterback, and they got Aikman and they have Staubach. Regardless of what we say,
Let me ask you guys,
throughout his career.
he is a
do we
he is a
throw
top
out
player.
2015 when he only played 4
Yes,
games? I
throw
know
it
he was
out.
banged up,
Throw it out.
but he wasn't good in 2015.
Throw that out.
We throw that out. Okay.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. To all the listeners, thanks for subscribing. Tell all your friends. We love the feedback. We're all over social media. Like us on Facebook. Follow the show at SFY on Twitter. And we will be back Monday. We will look forward to talking to you on Monday.